What if the person you can't stop thinking about isn't actually special? What if your brain simply turned them into something they never were? Today, we're exploring why we romanticize certain people and why it can be so hard to stop. Have you ever met someone and felt like there was just something different about them? Maybe it was a crush, a friend, an ex, or even someone you barely knew. For some reason, they stayed in your mind long after everyone else faded away. You replay conversations, imagine different scenarios, and find yourself wondering what could have been. The strange part is that sometimes the people we can't stop thinking about aren't the people who treated us best. They aren't always the kindest, smartest, or most compatible, yet they somehow take up more space in our minds than anyone else. Why does this happen? Psychology has a fascinating answer. The first thing to understand is that we don't see people exactly as they are. We see them through the filter of our own emotions, desires, insecurities, and expectations. In other words, your brain doesn't just observe reality, it helps create it. When you become interested in someone, your mind starts filling in the blanks. You don't know everything about them, so your imagination steps in. And most of the time, your imagination is far more flattering than reality. Psychologists call this idealization. Idealization happens when we focus heavily on a person's positive traits while ignoring, minimizing, or completely overlooking their flaws. Instead of seeing a real human being with strengths and weaknesses, we begin seeing a version of them that exists mostly in our minds. The less we know about someone, the easier this becomes. That's why people often romanticize crushes, celebrities, online personalities, or people they've had limited interaction with. When information is missing, the brain fills the gaps with fantasy. Think about it. When you truly know someone, you see their bad habits, mistakes, fears, insecurities, and imperfections. But when you barely know someone, your mind gets creative. It takes a few attractive qualities and builds an entire story around them. Suddenly, they're not just funny, they're perfect. They're not just attractive, they're your dream person. They're not just interesting, they're unlike anyone you've ever met. The reality is that much of what you're attracted to may actually be your own imagination. Another reason we romanticize certain people is because of uncertainty. Psychology has found that uncertainty can make people seem more attractive. When someone sends mixed signals, becomes unavailable, or remains mysterious, our brains often become more obsessed. Instead of moving on, we start searching for answers. We replay conversations. We analyze every detail. We wonder what they're thinking. The uncertainty creates a mental puzzle, and human beings hate unfinished puzzles. This is one reason why people sometimes struggle to get over someone they never even dated. There was no clear ending, no complete story, no certainty. And because the story feels unfinished, the brain keeps returning to it. Not because the person was necessarily perfect, but because your mind wants closure. Social media makes this even worse. In the past, people disappear from your life more easily. Today, one scroll can bring someone back into your mind instantly. You see their photos, their highlights, their achievements, and their carefully edited moments. But social media rarely shows reality. It shows the best angles, the happiest moments, and the version of someone's life they want others to see. The result is that we compare our everyday reality to someone else's highlight reel. And that's a comparison nobody wins. Another powerful psychological factor is projection. Projection happens when we place our own hopes, dreams, and desires onto another person. Sometimes we're not actually attracted to who someone is. We're attracted to what they represent. Maybe they represent confidence. Maybe they represent adventure. Maybe they represent the relationship you've always wanted. The person becomes a symbol of something deeper, and that's why letting go feels so difficult. You're not just letting go of them. You're letting go of the future you imagine with them. What's interesting is that people often become less attractive once we get to know them better. Not because they've changed, but because reality replaces fantasy. The image we created in our minds starts colliding with the real person standing in front of us. Suddenly, they're human. They have flaws. They make mistakes. They're not the perfect character our imagination created. This is why some crushes disappear the moment we actually get close to the person. Psychology also shows that loneliness can increase romanticization. When we feel lonely, disconnected, or emotionally vulnerable, we're more likely to place people on pedestals. We start believing that one specific person is the answer to our happiness. We convince ourselves that if only things worked out with them, everything would be better. But no single person has that kind of power. The feeling isn't coming from them. It's coming from what your brain believes they can provide. The truth is that romanticizing someone often tells you more about yourself than it does about them. It reveals your desires, your fears, your dreams, and your unmet emotional needs. The person becomes a mirror reflecting parts of yourself you may not fully understand yet. So, how do you stop romanticizing someone? The first step is seeing them as a complete human being instead of fantasy. Remind yourself that every person has flaws, insecurities, and struggles you can't see from the outside. The second step is separating the person from the story you've created around them. Ask yourself, am I missing this person, or am I missing a version of them that exists in my imagination? That question alone can be incredibly powerful. Finally, focus on reality instead of possibility. Many people stay attached because they're in love with what could have happened rather than what actually happened. But your future should be built on reality, not fantasy. The more you see people clearly, the less control they have over your thoughts. If this video made you think differently about someone you can't stop thinking about, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy psychology, human behavior, and understanding the hidden patterns behind attraction, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.